Let's jump right in. Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're unpacking a pretty chilling transformation in global politics. We're looking at how the bloody public terror of 20th century dictators has evolved into the covert, media manipulating tactics of modern autocrats. It's a massive shift in how power is actually maintained, moving from the blunt force of a weapon right to the subtle manipulation of your newsfeed. So, why are state killings plummeting while authoritarian control remains stronger than ever? It's a massive paradox. If you look at the historical data, you see a really sharp decline in the brutal, visible state violence that totally defined the 1900s. Yet, in many parts of the world, the authoritarian grip is just as tight, if not tighter. You have to wonder, how do today's autocrats maintain such firm control over their populations without relying on all that mass terror and bloodshed of their predecessors? Well, there's a stark contrast between two very different models of control here. On one side, you have the old fear dictator. This model relied heavily on brutal, public intimidation. We're talking massive prisons, strict ideological programming, and totally aggressive, overt censorship. It was basically a strategy of shock and awe. But then compare that to the modern spin dictator, who relies on stealthy, legalistic manipulation. The repression is completely hidden, so instead of executing rivals, they just bog them down in non-political lawsuits. And instead of ignoring the public, they are absolutely obsessed with approval polls. Plus, instead of banning all independent thought, they actually allow token opposition media to exist. It's a completely different game.
Okay, let's move into our first section, the era of fear and the public spectacle of repression. To fully appreciate the sophistication of the modern autocrat, we first really need to establish the horrific baseline of the mid-20th century.
Because the old way was incredibly blunt. The source material details how dictators back then actively turned violence and censorship into massive public spectacles. They wanted everyone to see it. We're talking about total comprehensive censorship, where literally tens of thousands of censors would black out words or airbrush photos. Dictators held public executions in packed sports stadiums, with some even blasting pop music over the loudspeakers. It's wild. They deliberately showcased mutilated corpses just to send a message. And they'd extract these completely absurd public confessions through torture, where victims would confess to being foreign spies or sabotaging crops just to demoralize the public and force absolute conformity. Society itself was deeply militarized, with children sometimes dressed in military uniforms and taught to march. And past dictators didn't hide from this brutality. They actively celebrated it. Look at this quote from Adolf Hitler. "They regard me as an uneducated barbarian. Yes, we are barbarians. We want to be barbarians." Fear wasn't an accidental byproduct. It was literally their primary tool of control. They wanted the populace to be utterly terrified because, quite frankly, a terrified public is a compliant public.
Now, let's look at the spin pioneer, Lee Kuan Yew, and the Singapore pivot. Because eventually the playbook began to change, and the research points to Singapore as the great pioneer of a totally new, softer touch when it comes to maintaining absolute political control.
Tracing this pivot over time, it starts in 1956, when colonial authorities in Singapore violently crushed middle school protests with tear gas and riot troops. A young politician named Lee Kuan Yew watched this and realized something absolutely crucial. Clumsy, violent crackdowns actually alienated the public and lost their hearts and minds. So when Lee took power in 1959, he resolved to use much smarter tactics. Fast forward to the 1980s, and Singapore had very few political prisoners, yet Lee maintained total political dominance. And incredibly, in 1989, when Lee watched China's violent tank-led response to the Tiananmen Square protests, his reaction wasn't ideological. He despaired at how ham-fisted and clumsy their approach was, knowing exactly what the world would think. What Lee Kuan Yew engineered was an entirely new system called calibrated coercion. It's a model of tight political control based on minimizing visible repression to sustain public support and marginalize the opposition. Instead of relying on police batons, he used the courts. He would sue his political critics for defamation, driving them into personal bankruptcy, which conveniently disqualified them from ever running for office. He neutralized his opposition without leaving a single drop of blood on the streets, all while keeping his public approval ratings incredibly high. A real game changer. That brings us to the modern autocrat playbook and subverting opponents covertly. This realization that you can control a country without openly terrorizing it was a massive watershed moment. Across the globe, other leaders began to adopt and refine these less visible methods.
Even before the internet age, we saw early innovations in hidden psychological harassment. Take the East German Stasi's secret police and their method known as Zersetzung, which basically translates to corrosion. Instead of arresting dissidents, agents would secretly break into their apartments and subtly rearrange the furniture. They'd swap out their favorite brand of tea or mix up their spice jars. It sounds crazy, right? But the goal was to gaslight victims, making them question their own sanity and paralyzing them with anxiety. All of this without leaving any obvious fingerprints or creating a political martyr. And that brings us right to the playbook used today. The source material highlights how modern leaders across the political spectrum utilize these exact stealth tactics. I mean, they rarely arrest opponents for treason or subversion anymore. Instead, they lock up rivals on highly disreputable non-political crimes, things like tax evasion, embezzlement, or even illegal elk hunting. It makes the opponent look like a common criminal, totally avoiding the negative PR of taking a quote-unquote political prisoner. They use revolving door detentions too, locking someone up for just 15 or 30 days over and over to exhaust them, rather than giving them a dramatic 10-year sentence. They bankrupt opponents with massive libel lawsuits, or they secretly send provocateurs to rallies so they can accuse peaceful protesters of violence. It's incredibly insidious. Next up is sensible censorship, or manipulating the message. This evolution naturally extends to how modern autocrats handle the press, controlling the flow of information without the blue pencils and dramatic book burnings of the past.
A perfect example of this comes from Peru's former president Alberto Fujimori and his intelligence chief Vladimiro Montesinos, who really perfected a step-by-step process for this in the 1990s. Montesinos realized that shutting down television stations was messy. It provoked international outrage. So instead, he just bought the mainstream media. Step 1, he secretly paid TV network owners millions of dollars in cash bribes. Step 2, in exchange, his intelligence agency would dictate the daily news headlines via encrypted fax. And step 3, to discredit his educated opponents, he didn't censor them. He used cheap, trashy tabloids to run endless, fabricated smear campaigns against them. He kept his hands completely hidden. Montesinos clearly understood the assignment. He once said, the addiction to information is like the addiction to drugs. We live on information. He recognized that in the modern era, controlling the television ratings literally meant controlling the politics. By relying on total surveillance and massive media co-optation instead of brute force, the regime could spin the national narrative entirely in its favor. This dynamic perfectly illustrates the Streisand effect. Banning a message only amplifies it. People immediately want to read what they're told they can't. So rather than total, absolute censorship, the modern spin dictator purposefully permits small token opposition media to exist. Why? Because it allows the leader to feign democracy. When they're accused of being a dictator, they can just point to these independent newspapers as proof of press freedom, knowing full well those papers only reach a tiny elite fraction of the population and avoid creating any actual martyrs. Now let's look at the data behind spin to see how this is a measurable global trend. We've talked about the tactics, but the research provides compelling data proving that this shift from fear to spin isn't just an anecdote. It's a measurable global reality. The numbers really confirm this massive shift. Look at the percentage of dictators holding over 1,000 political prisoners. In the 1970s, nearly 60% of dictators operated this way. But by the 2000s, that number had dropped to just 16%. The practice of mass political imprisonment has absolutely plummeted over the last few decades. And the numbers regarding press suppression are equally surprising. Traditional fear dictators and hybrid regimes average one state murder of a journalist every 10 years. But spin dictators, they actually murder journalists far less frequently than even democratic nations, averaging just one every 42 years, compared to one every 21 years in democracies. They know for a fact that dead journalists create disastrous PR, invite international sanctions, and ultimately weaken their own popularity. So they just don't kill them. They tie them up in court or smear their reputations instead. The numbers also reveal the terrifying effectiveness of this strategy when we look at average leader approval ratings between 2005 and 2015. By masking their repression and flooding the media with positive spin and distracting entertainment, these autocrats maintain surprisingly high approval. Spin dictators averaged an approval rating of 55% among the general public. That is significantly higher than hybrid dictators, fear dictators, and way higher than the 41% average approval rating for leaders in actual democracies. The spin is actually working. And this all leads to what's called the paradox of the informed. The research shows that college-educated, politically savvy citizens completely see through the spin. They aren't tricked at all. But the thing is, the dictator doesn't care, because those informed citizens are vastly outnumbered. As long as the autocrat keeps the general masses comfortable, unbothered, and entertained, the highly educated minority is effectively isolated and completely neutralized by the manipulated masses.
Which leaves us with a final provocative thought to take away from all this source material. If modern authoritarianism thrives on manipulating the masses to isolate the informed, how certain are you that you aren't being spun? We've seen how control has evolved from overt terror to invisible manipulation, blending seamlessly into our daily media diets. It's designed to make you feel free while subtly shaping everything you see and hear. So are you absolutely sure you aren't being spun right now? Thanks for joining me on this explainer. Keep asking questions, and I'll see you next time.